Cork in the 1970s, this was the bit of the Mass where the parish priest came out and asked for money. Waking the Feminists started in a groundswell of outrage and indignation last November, and in 4 short months it has impacted on thousands of women and men working in the arts in Ireland. There's been a sea change in theatre in this country, from the major funded institutions to individuals working at every level in the business. The ripple effect has been extraordinary. It's been a giddy few months, but change has to be long-lasting. It can't be ephemeral. We need to keep it going. There's been a phenomenal response from a huge number of people who've donated time, energy and resources over the past few months to get us where we are today. Having said that, there are significant costs involved in organising events like this one, in undertaking rigorous research, in developing training procedures, and in helping theatre organisations implement structures that will outlast this year. When we talked about tickets for today's event, we wondered about a nominal charge, but very quickly decided against that because we didn't want to exclude anyone. But we would really love if everyone who's here today can help in one way or another. If you're part of a funding body or an organisation or a foundation that has a programme that can help, we'd love to hear from you. If you're an individual who can spare some time and would like to get involved with the campaign, we'd love to hear from you. If you're an individual who can make a donation on your way out the door, there will be people waving buckets who will be very glad to see you. If you'd like to buy some of the wonderfully designed merchandise, there are tote bags and badges, and the mugs have arrived. We have a limited supply of merch, and it will sell out. These are destined to become collector's items. So, no, that's not funny, it's true. So do please descend on the tables on your way out. The Waking the Feminists objective is a very simple one. Equality for women in Irish theatre. It's all still to play for. The revolution is still being fought. With your help, we can win it. Thank you.
My name is Liam Minto, and I'm speaking on behalf of Donna Nicolaisen. When I first decided to become a professional actor, my sister warned me that it would be hard to find roles in Ireland owing to my ethnicity. It's a visual medium, she said. You don't look Irish, Donna. I didn't believe her. After all, I was born in Holles Street and brought up in Cork. Sure, how much more Irish does a girl need to be? However, in time, I grew to learn that she was, for the most part, right. Most of the roles in theatre that I've been lucky enough to play have been race-related, and although it gave me great pride and to play these characters who both needed and deserved a voice, it also deeply frustrated me that I was somehow excluded from many roles in classic, period and contemporary plays. Actors need roles not just to make a living, but more importantly to develop their craft. If I was living in the UK, I would probably have more opportunities as an actor of mixed race. There is a progressive approach to diversity in the arts across the water, which undoubtedly reflects the UK's long history of immigration. As a child, I was something of a rarity in Ireland. However, the face of Ireland today is becoming a multicultural one, and the arts have a responsibility to reflect our society and to be an inclusive force, as opposed to be an exclusive one. Writers, directors and producers of stories should be open to reimagining the race of characters. I'm very emotional, all the speeches, I'm so sorry. Writers, directors and producers of stories should be open to reimagining the race of characters, without being said to be subverting the canon or betraying the writer's vision. The universality of the human experience is what makes us respond to stories. Let's include everyone in that story.
I'm Lynn Parker. I'm the Artistic Director of Rough Magic Theatre Company. The bad news is that this country is in political, moral and spiritual freefall. The good news is that there is a body of people and a way of working that can arrest that fall. I was part of the core group that began this movement in November, That cathartic day of protest was achieved by a true theatre ensemble. Powerful individuals acting as a unit, shared responsibility, remarkable generosity of spirit, comprehensive lack of ego. And an event that ran like clockwork, maximised its resources and created change. Mostly, though not exclusively, engineered by women. Feminism in practice. Very good news. And I thought, why aren't these people running the country? The theatre sector remains a better place than most to work in, and it's largely because, apart from a couple of institutions in need of enlightenment, it is run by women and some very enlightened male feminists. But you look at the wider landscape and you despair. The best news is that progress is inexorable. For example, when I started, all the technicians and lighting designers and production managers were male. Nowadays, nearly all the best lighting designers are women, female crews are becoming the norm, and women are among our most exciting sound designers. They weren't exactly coaxed into the industry, but the industry discovered it needed them because they were bloody good, and they wouldn't be discouraged. Kate Ferris is going to tell you about some of the hurdles she's had to overcome, and she's accompanied by two exemplars of creative technology, Alma Kelleher and Zia Holly, and two of her own team who are changing the face of theatre just by being here. And this is excellent news for men too, because everyone knows and every study has proved that a gender-balanced environment is more productive and a hell of a lot more fun. Waking the Feminists is accelerating the sea change so that first-class professionals don't have to waste their valuable time and energy jumping hurdles and are able to get on with their jobs. That's the way to make it all work better for men and women who just want to work without the tiresome, wasteful, deadly poison of misogyny pulling them and everyone into freefall. That's the way to a genuine meritocracy, a more efficient society, and a better world. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kate Ferris, and today I'm standing here representing some of the women who work in the production and technical sector of Irish theatre. I have a degree in technical production and stage management from the Queensland University of Australia. I worked as a stage manager for 10 years in the UK, Australia, the Middle East, and Ireland. I'm currently the head of stage management at the Lear Academy in Dublin, where I'm responsible for training stage managers. So far, I have trained 30 stage managers who now work in various roles in technical theatre. I'm also a theatre producer and have produced 5 successful shows over the last 2 years. So, you might say I'm good at more than one thing. In fact, I'm proud to say I'm pretty good at a number of things. If this were an interview, I might say I have many transferable skills over a wide spectrum of disciplines. Hello, Alma. Let me introduce you to the women who are joining me here on stage. We have sound designer Alma Kelleher and lighting designer Zia Holly. Many of you, I'm sure, would be familiar with Zia and Alma's work, both leading in their professional fields. Also with us, we have Emma and Jane. They are archetypes of the women who are currently working in Irish theatre as crew. Emma and Jane are not their real names. If these women used their real names, I'd be concerned. Well, there could be consequences. There are women currently working in the technical sector of theatre in Ireland who don't feel like they can publicly support the Waking the Feminist movement as they are worried about how it will impact on their careers. At the moment, Emma and Jane are rigging 1 Fresnel lamp and 1 profile lamp. Just in case any of you don't know, Fresnels are different to profiles. Fresnels are lights that are subtle and soft. They give an overall wash of the stage. One might say the backbone of a design. Profiles, however, produce clearly defined beams of light. They can do everything a Fresnel can and more. One might even say more powerful, a spotlight. Emma and Jane have been working in the industry for around 2 years. Like me, they also have many transferable skills over a wide spectrum of disciplines and have huge potential to develop into more senior positions. Emma would like to ultimately become a production manager. Jane would like to become the technical manager of a venue. So they're going to continue rigging lights, ASMing, supporting and actualising all the creative decisions that run down the ladder of command, from cutting gel to sourcing the correct style of furniture for a period drama, building their level of competence with every job in order to advance their careers. Both Emma and Jane have been on the receiving end of sexist comments working in theatre. Some of it has been subtle and some quite blatant. It hasn't happened in every venue or in every theatre, but it has happened. These remarks have not necessarily come only from other crew, but also from directors, producers and actors. Emma and Jane believe that if they want to climb the ladder, they'd better say nothing. On her first year in the industry, Jane had her arse grabbed at an event by a director. The man hosting the event apologised on behalf of the event, but said nothing to the man who had done it, because, well, you know, there could be consequences. On the first day of her first gig, a fellow crew member asked Emma, "What's the similarity between a woman and a washing machine?" They both leak when they're fucked. These professional, intelligent, creative, and highly ambitious women don't want to be patronised and referred to as girls, a good girl, or a plucky wee girl. They don't want to be told that they could get anyone to do anything for them with those eyes. There are women currently working in the design sector of theatre in Ireland who speak of the silent sexism, the one where you have to prove yourself over and over again, of not being entirely trusted to do a job, or a certain type of job, or a certain level of job, or having your opinion questioned or passed over. Both Emma and Jane would like to have a family someday, but think that because they work in technical theatre as freelancers, having children is impossible. If they do want to have kids, they know they'll only go so far. There is currently no structure in place in Irish theatre to support working parents who are freelancers, and this, I believe, really needs to change. We have an opportunity here to wake the nation and lead in this field. When asked about her desire to be a production manager, Emma has been questioned in the past, how are you going to look after your kids if you're driving a truck through the night to get from one venue to another on some really busy tour? Emma had the simple answer in her head, how do you? Why is that a question for me because I'm a woman and not for you because you're a man? Jane had this great idea last week that she could approach a female technical manager to mentor her. She couldn't find one. Very recent research proves that aside from the Abbey Theatre, there is not one female technical manager in our nation's professional theatres. Apparently, it's a man's job. So, what I'd like to say to Emma and Jane, but I won't because they're up a ladder, is to quote Josie Rourke, Artistic Director of the Donmar Warehouse. A huge part of the conversation is how you stick at it in your 30s and what motivates you to move from middle to senior management. For those in freelance roles, the theatre is a hard place to sustain a career and children. No pension, no maternity leave, just a nomadic lifestyle with unsociable hours. It would take huge wisdom and honesty for theatre to investigate its culture. So that's you, by the way, and me. You are theatre and so am I, and it is up to you and I to investigate our culture and to ask ourselves questions and answer them honestly. So today I'm asking everyone here in this room, am I part of the problem? Is my apathy part of the problem? And can I help fix it? I know it's hard. Well, there could be consequences. There has been a lot of talk since November 12th, 2015 about the Waking the Feminist movement. Now it's time for our actions to be stronger than our words. Over the coming months, as one of the core organisers of the Waking the Feminist Committee, I will be meeting with 12 female practitioners, stage managers, crew, designers, and heads of department. We will be dissecting these issues in detail, putting our words into action. I do not want this to be the only ladder that Emma and Jane reach the top of. I want to see them advance to senior positions in technical theatre. I want to see highly competent, organised and excellent female technicians and stage managers progressing to be production managers and technical managers, where their skills are so obviously transferable. I want our industry to enable them to achieve every opportunity on the career ladder. And finally, what I also want is for the men who want to be feminists not to be concerned about their space in feminism. I want them to take the space that they have in Irish theatre and to make it feminist. So, just to remind you again, Fresnels are different to profiles. They're soft and subtle. They give an overall wash of the stage. One might say the backbone of a design. Profiles, however, produce clearly defined beams of light. They can do everything a Fresnel can, and more. One might say more powerful. LXQ1, go.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Louise Lowe, and I'm the Artistic Director of Anu Productions. So I'm a theatre maker, and I live in Ireland. And if I'm absolutely honest, I have neither sought nor permission nor invitation to make the kind of work that I want to make. I make it because I want to make it and because I believe that I should make it. Once decided, I can be tenacious and stubborn and committed. And I'll do everything in my desire to realise a project from fruition. I will try and find environments and partnerships and relationships that afford me the opportunity to be commissioned outside of current models and current funding structures. I make no apology for this. I want to make work that questions who we are and why we are. I want to make work that places the audience at the very centre of the conversation and one that recognises that they being there matters, that we matter, that the issues and questions that we have as a society matters. I want to make work that is vital and brave, work that questions my world and my position within it. My position just happens to be that I am a 41-year-old inner-city, working-class woman, living in a country that has a shameful way of dealing with issues facing women, be that Magdalen laundries or symphysiotomies. I am a 41-year-old woman living in a country that denies me the right to have autonomy over my own body. This makes my work complicated and contentious and frequently provokes more questions than answers. I have been lucky enough to be surrounded by brilliant teams of artists who give their all every day to realise these projects with me. Artists of both genders who vehemently believe that we as feminists should be telling these stories. Men and women who believe that it is equally important for our society to ask these questions. I am also lucky enough to be surrounded by the most amazing male feminists who have taught me a lot about feminism. 9 years ago, Owen Boss, my co-artistic director, walked into our rehearsal room with his newborn baby daughter in a sling. I asked him, was he minding her? And he informed me that he was parenting her. He was angry that I should ask that question, and I was angry that I had. I never asked again. Since that day, on his insistence and example, we have opened our workspace to mums and dads who need to bring their children with them. It is not unusual to find children in our studio or workplace. This morning, I shared breakfast with a 3-year-old called Belle, who was sitting in the green room at the convention centre in her pyjamas, eating fruit. A lot of our work over the past number of years has been about deconstructing the manipulation of the female identity and forefronting the female body as a political site. Within all of our 17 productions, even those that seem on the surface to be explicitly about men, such as Boys of Foley Street or Pals, we've attempted to ask radical questions about the role of women. One of my astounding and favourite memories was of artist Una Kavanagh during a symposium event that marked the closing of our Monto cycle. She engaged in a performative lecture about how she had embodied the female form in each of the characters she had played over 4,000 performances. Similarly, dancer Emma O'Kane in Vardo, in the final scene of her tetralogy, performed an embodied physical score based on all the dissonant gestures of all the female characters throughout the cycle. Her piece called The Business of Hope captured their energy and dynamism and the demand that their stories be heard. Waking the Feminists allows us all to be in the business of hope. Since 2009, all of our 17 productions have been directed by a woman. All but one produced or co-produced by a woman. All our senior design roles, including set, lighting, sound, and costume, are by female designers. We have worked with incredible female production managers, stage managers, and technicians. At 68%, our female actors significantly outnumber our male ones. In 2016, over 180,000 audience members will engage with our work. We will present 6,302 performances with 65 actors, 41 of whom are female, in 32 locations with 19 co-presenters, 9 productions and 3 commissions. Things will change. Things will change because we will continue to make changes. Things will change because together we can galvanise. But most importantly, things will change because we will cultivate a new ecology and a new ambition to lead and not just serve this industry, embracing feminism across genders. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Larkin. I'm an actor, theatre maker, and more recently, a pregnant woman. I'm reading on behalf of Sean Dunn, the playwright, today, who can't be here. When Waking the Feminist first happened, I was upset at the stories I was hearing, confused too. But then ultimately annoyed at myself for being so naive to think that our community was different to the rest of the world. I thought we had a level playing field. I didn't know that female writers and directors felt so held away from the stage. I think this is because female artists, programmers and literary managers have been such a big part of my career path. They're the ones who have always heard me. How had I not been hearing them? I felt defensive too. Defensive and self-conscious. Knee-jerk reaction, I was worried that I was part of the problem, or seemed to be. As a working class gay artist, I'm not used to having privilege prescribed upon me, but I am really privileged. Waking the Feminists for me was about realising that. The fact that I'm so out of the loop on what's going on with half of our theatre community is frankly embarrassing, because access is a huge part of my art. It's a core theme of mine. In the beginning, I thought a lot about the staff at the Abbey. I was worried about Aideen, Lara, Jessica and Fiach too. And if I'm being honest, I was worried about me. Don't get me wrong, I love this movement and I want to remain part of it, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't take a sharp intake of breath for myself during the height of it. What does this mean for me? Will my work be staged? Will my work be delayed? What happens next? As a male writer who has been produced in the Abbey before, a lot of people have asked me if I'm all right. That makes me uncomfortable. But I understand the consideration, because the ripples of these conversations do, of course, impact us all, as they should. At the end of the day, it boils down to what kind of theatre do I want to be part of in Ireland. When I ask myself that, how I'm affected individually does feel as significant, actually. I want to work in a theatre that is inclusive, accepting, wide-reaching and whole. That's the remit. That's the goal. Happy International Women's Day to all the feminists that I know, and let's continue to keep making great art.
Hi, I'm Sarah Durkin and I'm moderately biased against women. I know because I've done a test.
Hi, I'm Dr. Brenda Donoghue, and according to the same Harvard Implicit Association test, I'm also moderately biased against women. I was a little disappointed by the result. I was hoping to get slightly biased. But according to the people at Project Implicit, Sarah and I are in the majority, as 76% of people who take the test are biased too.
As a former producer with the Corn Exchange, a very feminist company, I was sometimes biased against women. Annie Ryan and I had a conversation at the very early stages of what became Freefall. We discussed why we were intending to make an every man story as opposed to an every woman one. Why put this particular male actor at its centre rather than this equally brilliant female actor? We quickly concluded that it would be a box office risk, and besides, we all know that the dominant narrative of the Western world is the everyman story. So we made an everyman story. Since last November, I can tell you my thinking on that has considerably changed.
Recently, I wanted to invite a group of friends to see a play. Thoughts like, what if it isn't any good, kept coming into my head, and later I started to worry about the source of this anxiety around the play choice. It was puzzling. Reluctantly, I came to the conclusion that it stemmed from the fact that the playwright was a woman. When I dug deep down into my feelings, I felt that there was more of a chance that the play might not be up to standard simply because the playwright was a woman. And as a person who has dedicated years of her life to studying plays by women, this shames me. But it also spurs me into action. This way of thinking must be common, and we need to change this, beginning with ourselves.
It's unsettling for each of us to realise that we are not quite the liberal, inclusive meritocracy we believe our sector to be. Through Waking the Feminists, we have found ourselves confronted with an imbalance so glaring that it was all but invisible. Surely this can't be us, can it? We are good people trying to create great work, championing artists, taking creative risks, and balancing box office with diminished public funding. We have doing our best, but we have been jolted out of our complacency, and we're not quite sure where we all stand now.
Increasingly, I've also become aware of how emotive this subject is. Waking the Feminists has provided us with a beautiful moment, requiring all of us to cease business as usual and begin to dissect the minutiae of our decision-making processes. The debate has been fruitful and productive, but it has also been intense, provocative, and at times it is straining under the weight of personal experience. Asking us to examine our own values and choices can make us feel that our professional and personal integrity is being called into question.
As a sector, we are as agonised by change as anyone else. However, there is no way to forge lasting change without embracing a level of discomfort first, run as we might from that uncertain place to safer, more secure ground. So let's for a moment take a step back. Let's peel away all the emotional stuff. Let's take a breath and look at some of the facts. Because if we don't, at the most basic level, count what's going on, we won't know what counts in our theatre culture.
The advantage of quantitative research is that we can sidestep the intensity of these emotive positions and present a picture of the industry as it truly is. We can strip the entire debate back to see the bare bones of Irish theatre broken down in numerical terms. The numbers are clear, honest, and informative. Let's use them. Before we talk about numbers, we need to talk about bias first. We've been using this word a lot recently, but what does it mean in the context of gender? According to the Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race and Ethnicity, unconscious bias, quote, refers to the attitudes or stereotypes that affect our understanding, actions, and decisions in an unconscious manner, end quote. They, quote, cause us to have feelings and attitudes about other people based on characteristics such as race, ethnicity, age, and appearance, and gender, end quote. Modern life is lived at a high pace. We simply don't have the time to weigh each decision we make in a conscious and rational manner. When we don't have enough information about a person or a situation, or when we don't have the time, our unconscious fills in the gaps. But it falls back on received ideas and general impressions. It is often imperfect. Unconscious biases are pervasive. Everybody possesses them, men and women. They often don't reflect our declared beliefs, and they favour our own in-group. Ellen Hewitt, writing in Forbes magazine, notes that unconscious bias is, quote, what makes people who consider themselves champions for women in the workplace rate a man's resume as more qualified than the same resume with a woman's name on it, end quote. And it can go some ways toward its explaining, for example, quote, how a company of well-educated, well-intentioned people could still end up hiring mostly young white men, end quote. Most importantly, however, our unconscious biases are malleable. We can change them.
Confirmation bias is another type of cognitive bias that involves favouring information that confirms our previously held existing beliefs or biases. Essentially, it's what leads us to hire and want to work with people like us. We seek out and believe things more readily when they fit easily with our view of the world. The experience of bias starts at a young age. Sheryl Sandberg, Chief Operating Officer at Facebook, talked recently at the World Economic Forum about the toddler wage gap that exists, and it continues through university. Researchers at the University of Washington explored the way students perceived each other's successes in the classroom and discovered that men consistently undervalued their female classmates' performances and gave more credit to their fellow male classmates. The same was not true of women. Unconscious gender bias is always there. It has real consequences for men and women pursuing the same professional opportunities. It's also been shown that in other fields, such as economics, that when men and women collaborate together, the men involved get more credit for the work than the women.
A study carried out by Princeton economics student Emily Glassberg-Sands used economic measures to gauge the level of gender discrimination in American theatre. Glassberg-Sands sent identical scripts to artistic directors and literary managers around the country. 50% were listed as written by a male author and 50% by a female author. The scripts with a female name assigned received significantly worse ratings in terms of quality, economic prospects, and audience response than the male ones. Glassberg-Sands refers to this as taste-based gender discrimination. In many cases, it was women artistic directors and literary directors discriminating against other women. This, despite another of Glassberg-Sands' findings that female-written plays, quote, and musicals by women on Broadway sold 16% more tickets a week and were 18% more profitable overall. Yet, even though shows written by women earned more money, producers did not keep them running any longer than less profitable shows that were written by men, end quote. However, there is evidence of positive change from other performing arts fields. Processes that try to get around unconscious bias have been used in other art forms, notably in auditions for symphony orchestras, where directors had claimed that white male musicians were the only ones qualified. The use of screens during auditions for symphony orchestras in the United States began in the 1950s, and it increased the likelihood that a woman would be hired by between 25 and 46%. Actually, through blind auditions, women became slightly more likely to be hired than men. And blind auditions also increased the racial diversity of orchestras.
Biases are culturally transmitted diseases. It's okay to be infected. We all are. It's just not okay to let them affect other people's livelihoods and opportunities if they don't fit into our mental picture or if what's good or what looks like us. A good place to start with dealing with it is by understanding your own unconscious bias. You can take implicit association tests developed by Harvard online. Here's the link. They cover not only gender, but also race, weight, sexuality, age, and disability. The test is painless. It takes less than 10 minutes, and the results are instantaneous. And, of course, a daily dose of feminism will definitely help alleviate symptoms of unconscious bias. Apply liberally. So how does bias manifest itself in Irish theatre? Currently, there just isn't enough extensive data, so we don't have a full picture. However, there are some key findings from Ireland and elsewhere that highlight some of the inequities we face. First, let's take a look at our population breakdown. Women outnumber men in Ireland, 50.45%. We are not a minority, we are in fact the majority, and we live longer. In the US, they have an initiative called The Count, jointly funded by the Dramatists Guild and the Lilly Awards. A 2002 report from the New York State Council on the Arts found that 17% of productions across the country had female playwrights. According to the new report, in 2015, it was 22%. That's 13 years to achieve just a 5% increase. In the UK, that figure only moved 1% over a decade, from 2003 to 2013, stubbornly hovering about 31%. So we have gender diversity, but it's still far from gender equality. Existing research from the Irish Theatre Institute for the decade up to 2014 tells us that in our funded theatres, only 20% of new plays produced in this period were written by women. On our bigger main stages, the figure for the same period is even lower. This is not equality. For the same period, Irish Theatre Institute's research also shows us that only 36% of the directors of those new plays were women. This is also not equality. Theatre Forum, in its recent pay scale study, included a gender question for the first time. This slide struck me in particular. We can note three things here. The green line, by the way, is the total numbers. The orange line are the female numbers, and the salary scales are going across the bottom, and the purple line are the male salaries. So, the majority of people working in theatre are earning less than $35,000 a year. There are considerably more women than men working in theatre overall, but as the pay scale rises, women drop off a very steep cliff. At the top of the scale, there are just a few men earning the bigger salaries. This echoes the excellent findings of the research that Trina Niguivar presented at the 2015 Theatre Forum conference. She found that in the arts in Ireland, while 59% of CEOs were women and 41% were men, for each €1 of public funding a woman CEO has budget control over, her male counterpart has 3. According to the World Economic Forum in 2015, it will take 118 years to close the gender wage gap. That's not until 2133. Not only our generation, but the next generation will be dead before that happens.
My previous research focused on the work and working methods of 2 playwrights who were women. It looked at the quality of their experiences. My own personal experience in the theatre told me instinctually that there was a gender problem in Irish theatre. The imbalance was evident to the naked eye, but when I looked for statistical proof, it was scarce. There is very little comprehensive research on the gender landscape in quantitative terms. Waking the Feminists is now seeking to address this gap in our knowledge. We want to create a body of research that will put down a baseline in gender terms. We will draw a standardised picture of what gender in Irish theatre has looked like over the last 10 years. Once this panoramic image has been drawn in statistical terms, Waking the Feminists, or anyone else who wishes, can use this as a foundation for further analysis. The aims of the research are 2. Number 1, gather robust quantitative data. Create a baseline for all organisations to measure progress over the next decade. See if there is a significant difference between the independent sector and the large institutions in Irish theatre. Establish where the problems lie and what they consist of. Identify areas where women are successful. And finally, lay the groundwork for effective and sustainable solutions. This will be groundbreaking research. The findings our study produces will be significant not only in an Irish context, but will also impact internationally. It's a global problem, and our research will provide a rare quantitative insight into where the problems lie. With this data, we can start to find some answers to the more complex questions behind the numbers, such as, why aren't more women playwrights and directors making it to the stages? How has this picture changed over the decade? Have some roles changed more than others? Most importantly, the research can be used as a yardstick for progress. Waking the Feminists has already raised the issue of gender balance in Irish theatre as a benchmark for theatre companies from here on in. But the results of the movement need to be measurable. We have to be certain that the impact is real and significant. So the research will be carried out in association with the Irish Theatre Institute, led by Tanya Dean and myself. And we will also partner with Irish universities with an interest in this area. Looking at the 10-year period between 2006 and 2015, the research will examine the gender breakdown in the theatre productions of the top 10 Arts Council-funded theatre organisations and festivals producing work over that time. It will focus on the key roles of producer, writer, director, designer, actor, production manager, and stage manager. Researchers will work with each company to collect the data, ensuring consistency across the data collection process. We have been refining the research template and methodology over the past 3 months. To date, companies have been very generous in opening up their archives to us. We did a pilot run with 2 companies to date and will roll that out to more organisations in the coming weeks. Only full productions with a minimum of 5 performances and a running time of over 45 minutes will be considered. Single and multi-author plays in any language, new work and revivals, and visiting international productions will be included. We hope to conclude the research by the end of November with some initial results available in, October and results available in November.
The numbers we already have are daunting. There are some big mountains to climb. But there is not a supply problem in Irish theatre in comparison to other sectors. Any university lecturer will tell you there are more females graduating from acting, directing, and from writing courses in Ireland. The female writers exist, the directors exist, the actors exist. They are plentiful, talented, and they are ready. We're not quite there yet with equality of numbers graduating from some design and technical courses, but that too is improving. So we can fix this problem in Irish theatre. It shouldn't take over a century or even a decade. Theatre is where we go to heal ourselves. It is powerful medicine for the collective psyche. We make the improbable possible every day. We believe ourselves to be the most collaborative and inventive of communities, telling new stories in unexpected ways, illuminating what has been hidden, changing the narrative. Isn't that what we do in theatre when we're at our best? Because if we in the theatre, in the arts, can't lead cultural transformation when that's our bread and butter, what chance does any other sector in Irish society have to achieve full gender equality? Irish theatre has this once-in-a-generation opportunity to be at the forefront of this momentous shift in our society. We need fully engaged leaders to drive the change. Policies and research are important, but they will not be enough in themselves. We know the difficult part is in the day-to-day decision-making. That's where it all gets complex and messy again. We all have to reach into the center of that chaos and make bolder choices, counterintuitive decisions to change our values and diminish those negative biases. We must have greater expectations of our female artists, greater confidence in women's creative ability and box office potential. We must choose to take action to fully and consciously include women in our main stages. With a concerted, focused effort, we can achieve equality in Irish theatre within 5 years. Together, let's change the numbers. It will be the most rewarding creative challenge of all our lives. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. We're running slightly behind now. We had hoped that there would be an opportunity for a lot of people to speak from the audience. Unfortunately now, because we're running slightly behind, there'll be a smaller number. So I'm going to open the floor now in a second. Hannah and Leanne are going to be roving with mics. There they are. And I'd ask everybody, if you have a contribution to make, an observation to make, that you please keep it brief so that we can accommodate as many observations as possible. So please try and speak for no more than 60 seconds. I'm going to start. If anybody wants to raise their hand, and we can kick off over here. If you could please say your name as well before you speak, before I knock over the podium.
Hi, I'm Ilo Tarrant. I work as a lighting designer and technician, and I'm really glad to see Kate representing women in production. I am playing a bit of catch-up with this movement because I don't know how much it represented me before, because I can only speak from what I've experienced. And I haven't experienced any explicit sexism in the workplace. But what I have noticed is that you're not given a chance to respond to the gigs that you're not considered for, and I'd like to see that change. What I'd also like to see change is general cultures that look the other way. Trying to figure out how to say this. There are general cultures that look the other way at, say, one person doing the job that should be allocated to 3 people. And it doesn't benefit anyone, and it especially doesn't benefit women. So I'd like to see that change, and I'd like to see us talk about that more. Thanks.
Thank you. And got Kate here.
Hi, my name is Kate Harris, and I want to applaud the work of everyone here today. And particularly, I just would like to say thank you so much to Kate Ferris for bringing in the very difficult position of women with children trying to work as a freelancer. I have 2 small children myself, and it is profoundly difficult to cope with childcare costs and lack of maternity benefits. And having just made a piece about maternity in Ireland, it's also very difficult to find pathways for work. And I hope that we will come together to find ways of solving some of these problems through collaboration and through mentorship. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Who am I going to next? To Nuala here.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Nuala Hayes. I'm delighted to be here, and congratulations to you all. There's a kind of a degree of déjà vu in this event, because I can remember back to the 1980s when there were similar discussions about the lack of opportunities for women writers in Ireland. And there was a publication set up called Attic Press, and a feminist and activist called Alva Smith produced a book called Wildish Things, which reflected new writing from women. And that really, it was specialized in new writing, and it transformed the landscape. So much so that today, the professor of poetry in Ireland is Paula Meehan, and she was published in that anthology. And also a younger woman, Anne Enright, is now the laureate for literature. So the same didn't happen with theatre. But what I want to do here is I want to introduce you to the woman who's sitting beside me. And just to say very quickly, some of you here are very young, you may not know her. She spent 41 years in service in the Abbey Theatre. She founded, along with Joe Dowling and myself, the Young Abbey Theatre in Education. We had lots of adventures there. She was also the founder with Team Theatre, and I left the Abbey in order to set up Team, but that was lost in history. Later then, she became the producer of audio tapes, where they recorded lots of Abbey plays. She's also a director of numerous plays. She was the first woman appointed to the board of the Abbey Theatre after Lady Gregory. She was also, where are we now? She was a member of the Arts Council for 10 years, and she was the first woman and the only woman who was president of Equity in the year 2000. She was also education officer with the Abbey. Now, some of you may not know her name because she was never one of the lads. But let me tell you, she is a fantastically supportive woman who has lived her life in theatre. And on International Women's Day, I would like to salute her and ask her, introduce her to you. This is Kathleen Barrington.
Folly dash. No, I just want to say, this is a marvellous movement. Everything is coming together. And Nuala talked about various things that I did, but it only happened because we worked together. We were a cooperative. We worked on things together. We imagined things together, and we made sure that they happened. This is going to happen. It's not just here in this small place. All these women, what marvellous women we are. I am so proud to be part of this day. Congratulations and good luck and happy Women's Day.
Thank you. We have time for 2 more comments from the floor. And if you can please keep them brief because we're trying to finish up. I'm going to take one here and one from the back.
Hi, I'm Susie Lamb. I'm an actress living in Kilkenny. And I just want to say on the subject of motherhood, both myself and my mother said that we became better actresses once we had children. But unfortunately, we have become less visible, or I have become less visible, not my mother. So I just wanted to say that I'm a lot better at my job despite the less visibility.
Hi, I'm sneaking a quick go in here. I'm Tara Derrington. I'm a parent and a director and a feminist. I was looking over my Virginia Woolf last night and contemplating how much has changed since she told us all to get a room of one's own. It's very hard as a parent when you look at the female canon that you have to recognise the majority of the most celebrated names there are women who, whether by choice or by fate, did not have children. And one has to ask oneself, are they intrinsically, is it impossible to achieve those 2 things, to be an artist and a mother? I contacted the Central Statistics Office and asked how many women in the Irish state are mothers, and they sent me lots of complicated figures. I'm not very good at maths, but hopefully I did my calculations right, and I worked out that 54% of us are mothers. I'm not convinced that our stories and our experience are reflected and heard, and I'd like that to be said.
Thank you very much. There's one final comment from the lady at the back in the corner.
Thank you. My name is Karen O'Loughlin. I am speaking today on behalf of SIPTU and Irish Equity as a representative for both of those organisations. Just want to say we are really, really proud to be able to host this this gathering today, particularly for the day that's in it. And to say to you, I spent 2 days last week down in Mullingar at the ICTU Women's Conference, where all of these issues that we're talking about today were discussed for working women in general. So the problems that you experience are not confined to working in the arts. These are problems that women experience all the time. Childcare as a real barrier to working and to progressing at work, and all of the other sort of under the radar sexism that goes on. So, and that reflection and the reflection today just really makes me remember, and I was really glad to hear one of the speakers say it there, actually I'm part of the problem. And I think we all need to look at ourselves and ask ourselves again the extent to which we are part of the problem, because we get bogged down with the day job, we get bogged down with the family responsibilities, and we lose sight of the bigger picture. So in Equity and in SIPTU, we're absolutely happy to continue to work with Waking the Feminists across all of those issues where our needs and our desires overlap. So thank you very much for having the opportunity to speak as well. And again, happy International Women's Day.
Thank you, Karen. So that's us for today. Thank you all very much for being with us. I just want to say again to thank Karen McLaughlin and Brian Tracy and all at SIPTU for being such generous and supportive hosts just today. Thanks to Roisin Ingle and to Erin Maguire from the Irish Times Women's Podcast who are recording the event today, and it will be part of their podcast next week, which will be issued on Monday. Thanks to Paula and her team who are filming today's event. To Theatre Forum, Project Art Centre and Rough Magic for their continued logistical support, to all our incredible speakers and contributors at today's event who were just fantastic, and today's event team. This was a collaborative effort, today's event. Thank you to Maria Fleming, to Kate Ferris, to Una Murphy, to Darnie O'Sullivan, to Sarah Durkin, to Brenda Donoghue, to Katie McCann, to Sarah Timmins, to Breffney Holohan, to Molly O'Cahan, to Alma Kelleher, to Zia Holly, to Caroline Williams, to Anne Clark, to Kate O'Sullivan, to Jen Coppinger, Aisling O'Brien, Lynn Parker, Leanne McCarthy and Hannah Reid and Sarah, John Crudden, Camille Chekshwash, I'm getting it right, Camille, I'll get there one day, Andrew Hanley, Aoife White, B. Blackwell, B. Sparks, Claire O'Neill, Megan Reardon, Niamh Ní Chóthar, Aoife Spillane Hinks, Cian O'Brien, Claire Barrett, Dylan Coburn-Gray, Lisa Mahoney, Kate Heffernan, Yvonne O'Reilly, Noelia Ruiz, Kate Horgan, and of course our own Liam Bell. Thank you very much for being with us.